I picked up Appalachian Hitchhikers all summer, and here's what happened. This story begins on June 30th, 2016. Bruce Henn from Bruce Henn's Garage finished Regular Car Review's project car, the Vagabond Falcon, which is a 1960 four-door Falcon running on a 1993 Fox body driveline. My job was to put miles on the Vagabond Falcon and gently break it in with a mix of city and highway driving. So I picked up Thru-Hikers to do this. The Hitchhikers were all Appalachian Thru-Hikers, modern monks walking the approximate 2,200-mile-long trail from Georgia to Maine. The Appalachian Trail passes through Pennsylvania near Bruce Henn's Garage in an adjacent town of Port Clinton. Port Clinton is an old canal and railroad town near the intersection of PA Route 61 and Interstate 78, approximately 4 hours west of New York City by car and 2 hours northwest of Philadelphia. Port Clinton has one main street, which is about 1/3 of a mile long, and about 5 cross streets only 100 yards long. Its businesses comprise of one rail yard, one barber shop, one bar, one volunteer fire company, one soda vending machine located in a resident's front yard, and one high-end BMW motorcycle dealership attracting wealthy out-of-towners zooming into town on $18,000 touring bikes. For me, the most important landmark in Port Clinton is St. John's Pavilion, an open-air structure covering a generous 1,000 square feet. The pavilion is free to use by any through or section hikers seeking a roof to sleep under as they traverse the Appalachian Trail, or AT. Across the road from the pavilion is a camping area for those who prefer the privacy of their own tents and a brick stove for cooking. There are other shelters along the Pennsylvania section of the AT, 501 Shelter, Eagle's Nest, Eckville Shelter, but none are quite as large as the Port Clinton Pavilion. Hikers commonly spend 2 or 3 nights there, resting, socializing, and hitchhiking the 2 miles south on PA Route 61 to the Tilden Shopping Center to resupply at a Walmart and replace broken camping equipment and tools at a Cabela's Outfitters store. Every few days that summer, I would cruise the Vagabond Falcon along PA Route 61 looking for outstretched thumbs and backpacks. If I found none, I would hang out at the Port Clinton Pavilion and hear their stories in exchange for rides. Here's what happened, and here's what I learned. And to protect the innocent and the guilty, all trail names have been changed. June 30th, 2016, Port Clinton, 11 a.m. I roll up to the pavilion in the Vagabond Falcon. 8 hikers milled around inside the pavilion. Parking the old car in a dirt turnaround, I walked up the 4 concrete steps in front of the pavilion. "That your car?" one hiker asked. "Yep," I said, holding up a green Coleman jug. "I brought some water if you need to top off." "Oh, right on." The first hiker I met that day went by the trail name Cargo. On the AT, folks rarely use their real names. Like Fight Club, who you are on the Appalachian Trail is not who you are in real life. Cargo was a man in his early 40s wearing a patchy mustache and a self-buzz haircut. Cargo said he could use a ride to Lowe's, which is a big box hardware store, to look for work. "I have 15 years of construction experience," says Cargo. "Up there," he means the Lowe's, "there's going to be a foreman pissed off at one of his guys, guarantee it. I'll go up to him and take that guy's place for a few days." Cargo's approach to thru-hiking was atypical. His plan was that he would hike for a week, stop in a town, scab as much work as he could, and then when he had enough money, continue. Most thru-hikers had money set aside for the trip. Other hikers told me that the minimum fund for the AT thru-hike is $1,700. But you really should have about $5,000 set aside. Cargo was penniless, and his backpack frame was broken. My wife threw all of my stuff out of a second-story window of my mother's house and stole my table saw," said Cargo. "My backpack must have broken then." "Was that before you set off?" I asked. Yeah. And you've been hiking with a broken frame this whole time? Yeah. I was an emancipated child. I didn't know what to say to that. So I searched the Falcon's trunk and found some J&B weld for Cargo's backpack frame. He told me that he was at the Lowe's yesterday, and a cashier told him that a construction company in Hamburg is hiring and maybe he could get some temporary work there. Cargo and I hopped in the Falcon and drove into the town of Hamburg looking for this construction company at the address Cargo had written on a scrap of cardboard. As we drove through stop-and-go traffic, the Falcon's brakes squeaked at every stop. "You have air in your lines," said Cargo from the passenger side of the front bench seat. "I used to be a mechanic for 7 years. Yep, you have air in your lines. If you have tools back at your house, I could come to your house and we could fix it. I can do it fast." "Thanks for your offer, but I have a guy," I said. I pumped the brake pedal at a stop sign and it felt firm, no spongy feeling. "Well, here's the address. Nothing here, I say. Unless they're running a construction business out of that house." We were stopped in a suburban cul-de-sac. "That clerk was telling stories," Cargo said flatly. I ratcheted the Falcon's B&M megashifter into reverse and pointed her sunburnt hood back in the direction of Port Clinton. 1 p.m., Port Clinton Pavilion, same day. A handful of Thru-Hikers gathered around a communal box of donuts and store-brand water bottles at a picnic table under the pavilion. A thin Thru-Hiker named General Tao had dark red bruises and cuts on his forehead, just above his left eye. He wore an unbuttoned shirt, exposing his hollow chest. The previous night, according to General Tao himself, he drank all the rum he could find and fell flat on his face. Wherever he landed, he slept. Above our heads, birds flew around the rafters of the pavilion. Small brown birds built nests up there, and if you watched, you could see wiggling little baby birds, eager for sustenance. White islands of bird poop blotted the pavilion's wood floor. Hikers paid the birds and their droppings little mind. By the end of the day, Thru-Hikers are mentally and physically drained. All they desire is food, water, carbohydrates, protein, and maybe alcohol or some THC. But a hiker's exhaustion isn't a hard and fast rule. There are some hikers who arrive at Port Clinton rejuvenated and ready for more activities. I watched 2 built girls arrive at the pavilion, drop their packs, spread yoga mats down on the grass, and get to stretching. Cargo resolved to fix his backpack frame with more than just J&B weld. He was using everything he could get his hands on: Band-Aids, post office mailing tape, clear epoxy, and it wasn't going well. Snap! His pack's frame breaks further. "Son of a bitch!" Cargo yelled, and he threw his pack's frame down and stomped around the pavilion floor. "I'm going down to Dalton, South Carolina and shoot a motherfucker." The yoga girls stood up, gathered their mats and packs, and walked across the road and set up on the grass lawn by the brick grill far away. I quietly gathered my notes and carried them out to the Vagabond Falcon's trunk. "Sorry for getting all worked up, Cargo." "No, it's fine. It's just been such a long day." "Yeah, I know." It was tough. Cargo had a hard hike ahead of him, especially if he was expected to work his way through the AT. I didn't talk to him much more after that, but I did see him a few days later, still in Port Clinton. Not at the pavilion. I saw him at the Lowe's. No, he wasn't at the Lowe's. He was at the Walmart, talking to someone else that I met. I didn't see him. I just kind of walked by. I guess he needed to work longer than he had to. And after that, he moved on. I asked some other hikers if they saw him, and they said no. So whatever he was searching for on the AT, I guess he found it. Or maybe he found a way back home and called it quits. I don't know. July 3rd, 183 crossing. The Appalachian Trail crosses Pennsylvania Highway 183 or 183, approximately 15 miles north of Port Clinton. No amenities lie at this crossing. Hikers only find... Oh, I apologize. No. Pennsylvania Highway Route 183 is south of Port Clinton. Yeah. Hikers who get to Port Clinton first cross Route 183, so we're backtracking a little bit here. Anyway, at the 183 crossing, there's no amenities, and hikers only find a dribbling spring about a quarter mile off trail. And there's a local trail angel who restores a cooler of trail magic, food, band-aids, stuff like that, to help hikers along. I parked the Falcon up against a grass hill. There's no designated parking at this crossing, only a dirt lot with no parking signs. I've never seen parking enforced here. The dirt lot connects to a fire trail. I suppose the state wants the lot clear so fire jeeps can reach the game lands about 2 miles from Route 183, and hikers arrive piecemeal. Here are the people I met. Ezequiel, an old gentleman who has hiked alone since the Georgia border. Ezequiel started at Springer Mountain with a friend, but his friend got tendinitis and dropped out for clear reasons. "I'm a contractor," said Ezequiel, "and I quit my job after I got on the trail. I just called in and told him, the boss, I'm done." Stevie Nicks, a solid-looking woman in her early 50s who sweated enough serotonin and dopamine to cure every case of depression at PAX East. "How far you come?" I asked Stevie Nicks. "Since the beginning," she said, while smiling and holding her arms out. "Since the very beginning, and I feel fantastic." Stevie Nicks told me that her family members back home in Kentucky were in a protracted feud with each other. The fighting had been going on for years, for reasons that are too grim to report here. Stevie Nicks told me what happened, but I can't bring my fingers to type the sentences. When 2 Crown Victoria police interceptors and a GMC ambulance arrived at her elderly parents' house one night, Stevie Nicks bought the biggest camping backpack she could find and hit the AT. For Stevie Nicks, the Appalachian Trail worked better than any therapist. She was happy now, and eagerly hung out at my car, enjoying juice boxes and snacks my friend Carrie brought. Eyes down kid. This youngster wasn't a Thru-Hiker. I never got his name, so I made one up. He was a late single-digit boy, walking southbound on the AT with his Oakley-wearing, attaboy-chanting, tight black t-shirt flexing, Fitbit bracelet-checking dad. Eyes down kid was still growing into his ears. Stevie Nicks congratulated him on hiking just like the big kids. Eyes down kid picked his eyes up off the trail for 2 Mississippi seconds, looked at Stevie Nicks, and then looked back down at the dirt and rocks. His touchdown father grinned. Party sub. Male, early 20s, ukulele strapped to his back. Party sub's pack was from the 1980s. Its design featured a fully external tube frame. Party sub said he made extra money on the trail by busking outside Walmarts. In fact, this was the guy that I saw with cargo a few days later. Moth. Male. Late 20s or early 30s, hard to tell. Moth had a shorter beard than most other hikers, and he wore modern hiking clothes like Under Armour and Reebok. On his back was a high-tech Osprey pack. Think the Tesla of hiking gear. Moth was very open about his former profession. "I was a light technician on Spielberg's Lincoln," said Moth. "I spent most of my day up in a crane adjusting lights. I'd be up there for hours. Tinder helped me pass the time." I believed Moth. I believed he was telling the truth. But why did I believe his story about working on a major motion picture and not Cargo's story about being a mechanic? Why did I leave the Vagabond Falcon unlocked around Moth and locked around Cargo? Calmness. Moth didn't try to impress me. He didn't try to convince me that he had film industry credits. "Did you see Spielberg?" I asked. "Yeah, but he was only, only up from my crane," said Moth. "I want to get you lunch. What do you feel like?" I could go for a burger, honestly. I haven't had one in a while. Well, if you get from here, 183, to Port Clinton tomorrow, I'll meet you at the pavilion and we can go to Five Guys. All right, sounds good. Thanks. July 7th, 2016, Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Tilden Shopping Center, Hamburg, Pennsylvania. Moth and I parked the Falcon in the Tilden Shopping Center, a monument to cheap land prices and commuter communities. In addition to the Cabela's, the center provides a Lowe's, Walmart, Army surplus store, and a school of smaller businesses all trailing like pilot fish following Big Daddy Shark Cabela's, gobbling up crumbs and scraps. Moth and I were, with the exception of 3 preteens, the thinnest people in Five Guys. Parents told their kids to sit down and behave. Grandparents looked into their fries and lamented the years. Daughters rolled their eyes, wishing the world would disappear. Fathers began sentences with, "We gotta," "You have to," "Then we will," and "You must." Moth and I sat far from the crowd near the door where I can keep an eye on the Falcon. Moth ate his burger slow and deliberate, placing the meat mass back down on the plastic tray in between every bite. We were on no schedule. We didn't have to. Moth says, "Either you make time on the Appalachian Trail or you don't, and neither is important." "Oh, someone's checking out your car." I looked. 2 gray-haired men wearing tucked-in light-colored plaid shirts, blue jeans, and white tennis shoes walked around the Falcon, pointing at different parts of the car. One of the men knelt down on one knee to look under VF's front bumper. Unsatisfied, the man lowered himself prone, flat on his belly, and I wondered how hot that asphalt was. He tilted his head from side to side like a confused husky dog. Meanwhile, his boomer friend cupped his hands around his eyes and looked through the passenger window. "I think they're figuring out it's far from stock," I say. "Do people do that a lot?" said Moth. "Oh yeah, but I don't mind. She's meant to be enjoyed." Moth and I finished and left. The gray-haired men had left, but they saw us leave from the far side of the parking lot, and they stared. July 11th, 2016, 183 Crossing. Some more people I met. Double Knot, or DK. Male, late 20s, experienced hiker. He already completed the Pacific Crest Trail. He moves fast, and he's well kitted out, even more than Moth. DK is an electrical engineer. He saved up his pay for a year before setting out on the AT. He carries a bear-proof food canister. It's an egg-like black case with no sharp edges. If a bear can't claw open an open canister, it will usually try to bash it until it breaks. A bear-proof canister will bounce away rather than crack. DK also carries a canister of bear spray on his belt, complete with a trigger and trigger guard. "We're often mistaken for homeless," says DK. Like Moth, DK doesn't have the gaunt, world-weary look that so categorizes northbound Thru-Hikers by the time they reach Pennsylvania. Money helps, and Double Knot has enough to eat hearty. "What's that blinking thing on your pack's shoulder strap?" I ask. "Transponder," says DK, as he unclips the orange and black device and hands it to me. "It looks like a garage door opener with a few extra buttons." DK says, "Every hour or so, this uploads my GPS coordinates to a website, and it also sends an email to my friends and family letting them know I'm okay." "What's this SOS button do?" I ask. "It empties my bank account," laughs DK. "And what it does is it rings GEOS, an independent search and rescue company, which will contact whatever emergency services are close and give them my coordinates to come find me, including life flight. I think. I'm not sure. I've never pressed it." "Wow," I say. "Don't press it," he says, looking at me. "I won't." "Yeah, this transponder is a subscription service. Costs about $170 a year." July 12th, 2016, Port Clinton Pavilion. A big gang of hikers was at the pavilion this day. The Falcon turns heads rolling up, and I gave a lot of rides to a lot of different people, and here's the cast of characters. Colt, male, beard, from Boulder, Colorado, worked as a cattle hand. He moved to L.A. to write for the L.A. Times, but now he freelances. Rumblejunk, male, bigger than Colt. In fact, this is the one guy whose trail name I'm using for real. That's his real trail name, and I'm doing it, first of all, because he said I could, and two, he has a podcast called soundsofthetrail.com. Rumblejunk carries an ink stamp, which makes a red impression of his face, and he used, not his entire face, he had a stamp made of his face, and that's how he stamps his the trail books at every shelter, which he uses in lieu of a signature. Each shelter at the Appalachian Trail has a logbook. Some are simple school composition notebooks, others are more elaborate 3-ring binders with professional-looking trapper keepers. When a hiker arrives at a shelter, it is customary to leave a journal entry telling of the day's events, if there are any, and a thank you to the shelter's caretakers. Galapagos, male. Looks like Jamie from Mythbusters. He's a teacher, and he doesn't say much. Cinder, male. Thin beard. He earned his name after partying too hard and falling in a fire pit. Spicoli, male. Clean-shaven hiker from Tennessee with shoulder-length blonde hair and a build like a varsity gymnast. He's joyful and eager to talk. Over the following 2 days, Spicoli gave me the most complete interview of any hiker on the trail, but more on that later. Refill, German tourist. Male from northern Germany. He flew to the United States just to hike the AT. Refill has to hustle because his visa was scheduled to end September 20th, leaving him just over 2 months to walk from Port Clinton, Pennsylvania to the AT's northern terminus at Mount Ketchikan in Maine. My snap-on magnetic shop light hung from the ropes strung up on the pavilion ceiling joists. Hikers suspend food bags from ropes so rodents have a harder time finding the goods. Crushed beer cans were fixed halfway down the ropes to further aggravate any critter brave enough to scurry down. The worst is when you feel mice crawling on your face when you sleep, says Rumblejunk. That's why some people set their tents up on the other side of the road. You get privacy and bugs and mice can't get at you, but I'm sleeping in the pavilion tonight. The sun went down completely. I told the gang I'd return tomorrow. Spicoli and the others wanted resupply rides. Oh. July 13th, 2016, 10 a.m., Port Clinton Pavilion. Thunderstorms were in the forecast this day. Most of the hikers stayed under the pavilion's roof, and around went a collapsible bong. I took a very small hit, out of courtesy, you understand. Aaron. Female. Possible townie. Late teens or early 20s. Erin isn't a hiker. Erin showed up about 30 minutes before I arrived. She wore a tie-dyed sundress, which was hemmed above the knees. On her feet were generic-looking work boots, and Erin brought a box of French fries for all the hikers to share. The fries were thick-cut steak fries from a family restaurant just north of Port Clinton. The type of food and spoon diner where your grandparents like to eat, talk, and agree that all teenage boys belong in jail, except for Tommy Wilmanson's son. He's a nice boy. Aaron drove an early 2000s silver gray Chevrolet Cavalier with factory alloy wheels and a deck spoiler. The front clip or bumper was cracked and rashed from either a low-speed accident or a parking mishap. Erin sat at the picnic table and talked to Rumblejunk while twirling her hair. She asked him when he tried his first beer. Rumblejunk said he didn't remember. Erin smiled with a slightly open mouth. Rumblejunk added plainly that alcohol wasn't that important to him. Erin wore the same wide-eyed, happy expression. She twirled her hair again. Around came the bong. Thru-Hikers rarely carry any liquid other than water. Alcohol is a great deadener, but it's too heavy, even in plastic bottles. Every ounce counts. Cannabis is much lighter, and its pain-to-relief carry weight is better suited to hiking. The sun was getting lower in the sky, and some hikers were still arriving. An older man with a tight crew cut and light blue eyes trudged up the pavilion's concrete steps. "The post office lost my mail drop," he announced to everyone and no one. A mail drop is when you, as a hiker, mail yourself a package to your future self strategically up the trail. Some hikers do this before even beginning a through hike. Hikers will pick towns along the trail, fill a box with non-perishable foods, and even mail the box to a post office in a town which they know they will pass through in the coming months. "You can have some of my oatmeal," said Galapagos. "You can have some of my oatmeal," said Galapagos. "I have extra instant coffee I'm not going to use," said another voice. Oh, I got it," said the crew-cut man, holding up a flat-rate UPS box. "She, the postmaster, had it. She just lost it. As dumb as she was, I'd be all over that like a bad rash," he added. The portable bong bubbled. No one had a response. We, the other hikers and I, began calling the crew-cut man Michigan behind his back, because he repeatedly said he was from Michigan, even though his accent put him square in Kentucky. Michigan told us he worked with the UAW, United Auto Workers, for 30 years up in Detroit, doing brakes. Hold on, injected Michigan. "Y'all ever smoke crack?" All conversations in the pavilion stopped. Everyone looked at Michigan. "I'm from Michigan. I didn't think it was good, but I'm telling you, it's awesome." Dead silence. "It comes in this big little fucking rock, and it gets you higher than high. You get stowner than stoned. You get stoned on top of stoned." "So you like crack," said Rumblejunk. "Here's how you do crack. You do the 2 lines of the best Colombian. Then you smoke the crack. I never met anyone who never smoked crack." "What's it like?" asked Galapagos. "It's like 5 shots of Jack and 5 Vicodins." A train whistle blew in the distance through the trees. Michigan yee-hawed back. A local girl passed by the pavilion walking a dog. Michigan's yee-haws turned into donkey hee-haws. "I wish I was that dog. I'd be getting a bone. Hee-haw, hee-haw." All of the other hikers got up and quietly walked out of the pavilion, one by one. They whispered to each other that they were going to dinner at the Port Clinton Hotel. Galapagos stayed behind to watch the packs, and Michigan asked where everybody was going. "Out," someone said curtly. The group of hikers was already 50 yards down the road. I said goodnight to Galapagos and headed home. July 19th, 2016. My day with Spicoli. Spicoli closes this narrative. He gave me the longest interview among my time with Thru-Hikers. I met Spicoli a few days earlier. His trail goal was to gain a sense of self and break out of what he felt was the crushing malaise and sameness of small-town Tennessee life. Spicoli had the build of a varsity gymnast with prominent biceps and traps, as if he hoists himself up on the rings daily. He carries the heaviest backpack of all the hikers I met, 50 pounds. "The more weight you carry, the stronger you get," smiled Spicoli. We sat for lunch at the Cabela's in-store cafeteria, a fetishistic tableau to mythic American masculinity, with taxidermied animals and a bush plane suspended from the ceiling. Our lunch, pulled pork and Reuben-like sandwiches. Meat fest. "I've been off the trail for a few days," said Spicoli. "I went to the Montage Mountain for the—" "Oh yeah, that's a ski area," I interrupted. Yeah, I saw the lifts. Anyway, there was a trap music festival going on, and that whole side trip from the AT was just part of my whole self-discovery thing I have going on with the AT. Ever do acid? LSD? No. I respond. I mean, if the right situation comes along, maybe. LSD is love. I'm serious. Takes about 40 minutes to kick in. Colors get brighter. All the bands have these lasers going. You feel love. It's pure. It's a social drug more than people give it credit for. I had a full conversation with myself out loud and figured out my life. Yeah, it was the most important moment of my life. What did you figure out about yourself? I asked. Spicoli thought for a beat. I'm doing the AT because one day back home, I lost myself. I was 19-year-old last year. Felt longer than that. But anyway, I had this crisis after graduating high school. I suddenly lost me. I couldn't relate to people. It's like a bad funk. I didn't talk to friends or really anybody from June 2015 to March 2016. I mean, I got accepted to Colorado Mountain College at Breckenridge to study education, and I just freaked out about it. I couldn't speak. I was so depressed. Talking was too much. I ask, so the act of speaking, forming words was hard? Yeah. Did you go to Breckenridge? No, I stayed home and took some classes at a community college. Friends from high school saw me and wondered what happened because they thought I left. But I was just staying home and not talking to anybody. So my parents took me into a psychologist. Psychiatrist, therapist, to get help. What happened there? Well, after I found out about the Appalachian Trail and how it changes you, I've never been happier. Doing the AT is the best thing I ever did. And I think I'm ready to become a teacher when I finish this. Spicoli and I finish and walk out to the Falcon. So where do you want to be dropped off? I ask. Can we go to the Ezequiel shelter? Is that okay? Sure thing. The Ezequiel shelter and trailhead is high on Hawk Mountain, and I open up all 4 carburetor barrels climbing the mountain road at speed. Spicoli hangs his arm out the window. No seatbelts in the Falcon, just maturity and foresight. Oh, and by the way, Spicoli wasn't yellow blazing, which means, cheating, hitching up the ride. I'd already taken him a few days earlier to slack pack back from Ezequiel shelter. Now, slack packing is a way. It's not cheating. What you do is you meet up with someone, usually at a shelter or crossing, and then they drive you further up the trail, and then you walk back from there. The slacking comes from either you leave your packs with that person if you trust them, or you stash them somewhere, and you only take the necessary bits you have for a day hike, which means you can slack really fast if you're not carrying your full weight. The danger of doing that is that you're leaving your pack somewhere else, your main backpack somewhere else. And no one steals stuff. If you hide it, you're good, but it is a risk that you take. I mean, the best thing is when you have a friend you know and trust, and you can leave their packs with them. So that's slack packing. There were a few other things that went on. I met some other people, but some of the people didn't want to talk. And the most common characteristic is when people got to Port Clinton, they're drained. Because the distance from 183 shelter to Port Clinton is something like 15 miles. And that's when Rocksylvania starts. Pennsylvania has the unfortunate nickname Rocksylvania because for this main section of the AT, when it passes through Pennsylvania, you're really walking on glacier rocks. The trail stops becoming a nice, smooth, worn dirt path, and it's full of rocks. And not just little rocks you can kick off. No, they look like little rocks, but they really go down into the earth about 3 or 4 feet. They're boulders. You're just walking on the top of them. They bust up shoes. People roll ankles. It's bad. So I hope that giving people rides and food and stuff like that was a way for me to make Rocksylvania a little bit more inviting. So thank you for listening to me picking up hitchhikers and hearing their stories on Appalachian Trail 2016.